A police dog persistently barked at a pregnant woman in the mall, leading to confusion and embarrassment. Initially, the incident was disregarded, and security even asked them to leave. However, hours later, doctors revealed a disturbing realization. If the dog hadn't intervened, the baby wouldn't have survived. The following details the actual sequence of events. Please share in the comments where you're watching from. Don't forget to subscribe, as another compelling Royal Guard story will be released tomorrow at the same time. You won't want to miss it. The fluorescent lights of Seattle's downtown precinct hummed overhead as Officer Deborah Morgan clipped the specialized canine vest onto Max, her Belgian Malinois partner of 3 years. Outside, the October rain painted the city streets in glistening reflections. A persistent rain fell, the sort that residents generally ignored but tourists hurried to avoid. Deborah straightened her uniform collar, verified her gear one last time, and looked at the wall clock. It was 7:15 a.m. 15 minutes until their patrol shift formally started. Prepared for another day ensuring the streets were secure. Partner? She inquired, gently scratching behind Max's attentive ears. The dog's intelligent, amber eyes followed her actions with the focused intensity that had earned him a legendary reputation within the department. His muscular physique remained perfectly still as she fastened the specialized canine unit patches, signifying his status as law enforcement rather than a service animal. The precinct was filled with the regulated disorder of shift change. Night officers completing reports before departing for home, day shift receiving assignments, and coffee being consumed in abundance. Sergeant Wallace stopped as he walked by, giving Max a respectful nod. "Got something interesting for you two today, Morgan," he said, presenting a tablet containing their patrol assignments. A shopping mall had reported some minor shoplifting. Ordinarily, a standard patrol unit would be dispatched, but there had been a string of organized retail thefts in that area. Management specifically asked for our best team. Deborah held back a smile at the subtle compliment. Her 7 years with the canine unit had established a reputation for meticulousness, but it was Max who had genuinely defined their partnership. What started as routine patrol and apprehension training transformed when trainers recognized Max's exceptional sense of smell, especially his capacity to identify blood in quantities so small they occasionally bypassed laboratory analysis. This skill set was first used for identifying injured suspects and finding victims during disaster events. 2 years prior, they were involved in the response following the Highway 18 bridge collapse, where Max located 3 victims trapped under rubble that thermal imaging failed to detect. His remarkable accuracy resulted in specialized training with the Medical Detection Research Program at Pacific Northwest University, where researchers continued to investigate the full scope of his abilities. "Another day, another dollar," Deborah commented, attaching Max's lead to her belt as they proceeded towards the parking garage. The specialized canine unit SUV waited in its designated spot, equipment already inspected and loaded during the previous night's end-of-shift protocol. While driving through Seattle's rain-slicked streets, Max sat attentively in his custom compartment, occasionally observing passing pedestrians before refocusing his gaze ahead. Morning traffic flowed with reluctant efficiency, commuters maneuvering between puddles and construction detours as the wipers maintained a steady rhythm against the windshield. Their radio emitted static before delivering the morning's first dispatch. Unit K93 respond to Westfield Shopping Center, south entrance near Macy's. Loss prevention personnel have detained a shoplifting suspect who has requested police assistance for a formal arrest and a potential link to organized retail theft. K93 is responding, Deborah acknowledged, activating her lights to expedite travel through the busy streets. Estimated time of arrival is roughly 8 minutes. Max noticed a change in her voice, a slight transition to the official tone that invariably indicated they were on duty. As they neared the large Westfield shopping center, neither expected this seemingly ordinary call to challenge their teamwork in unforeseen ways. The south entrance was unusually busy for a Wednesday morning. A local school holiday had drawn numerous families, filling the walkways with strollers and teenagers, even with the ongoing rain. Deborah led Max through the automatic doors, and his training was immediately apparent as he moved through the busy area with precise heel alignment, disregarding the infrequent surprised reactions or pointing from children who noticed the police dog. Security Chief Alvarez greeted them just inside. His neat uniform and professional appearance stood in contrast to the visibly distressed young man in handcuffs sitting on a bench nearby. A small collection of merchandise still bearing security tags was gathered as evidence. "Thank you for coming," Officer Morgan, Alvarez said, extending his hand. "We caught this one attempting to leave with approximately $600 worth of electronics. The store manager wishes to press charges, and we've had 3 comparable incidents this month." Deborah nodded, already assessing the surroundings while maintaining a relaxed but firm hold on Max's lead. "We will collect his information and transport him back to the precinct for processing. Are there any witnesses we should speak with?" Alvarez indicated a small group of people waiting close to the security office: a store employee, an elderly man using a cane, and a visibly pregnant woman wearing a blue maternity dress, appearing to be approximately 7 months pregnant. The woman in blue, Emily Thompson, had observed him removing security tags in the electronics department. She was the individual who notified our team. Deborah moved toward the witnesses, with Max moving smoothly alongside her. Gathering statements had become a familiar process for her during her time on the force. Build rapport, collect information in chronological order, address any discrepancies, and thank individuals for their civic duty. "Mrs. Thompson, I'm Officer Morgan. I understand you observed the shoplifting incident. I would like to obtain your statement if you—" Max's actions shifted so abruptly that Deborah nearly lost her hold. The Belgian Malinois froze, his nose working intensely, his focus entirely on Emily Thompson. Before Deborah could give a correction, Max emitted 3 distinct barks, not the usual alert bark used in training, but a more pressing, more demanding sound. "Max, quiet," Deborah stated firmly, a blush rising on her cheeks as people turned to look throughout the mall entrance. The dog disregarded her entirely, an unprecedented action in their 3 years together. He edged closer to the pregnant woman, his barks growing louder. Emily Thompson moved backward, her hand moving to shield her belly. "What's wrong with him? Is he dangerous?" she asked, her voice filled with worry as she stepped away. "I'm so sorry," Deborah said, positioning herself between Max and the woman. "He's extremely well trained. This behavior is completely out of character." Security Chief Alvarez advanced, his demeanor shifting from professional to concerned. "Officer Morgan, perhaps you should remove your dog from the premises. We have other witnesses who can provide statements." Max continued to strain toward Emily, whining now between barks, his entire body communicating urgency that Deborah couldn't understand. A small group had assembled, with phones out to capture what was happening. The department certainly didn't need a viral video showing a police dog seemingly intimidating a pregnant woman. "Ma'am, are you okay?" Deborah asked Emily, still working to keep Max under control. "Did he frighten you?" Emily's hand stayed protectively on her abdomen. "I'm fine, just startled. Perhaps he's responding to something different." The baby kicked precisely as he began barking.
"Deborah commanded. Max, settle."
Deborah spoke with greater authority, eventually succeeding in drawing him back a few steps, even though his gaze remained focused on Emily's midsection. His actions were raising concerns for Deborah. This wasn't a display of aggression or a lack of training. It appeared Max was attempting to urgently convey a particular message. "Mrs. Thompson, this may seem unusual, but are you having any medical concerns related to your pregnancy? Any pain or discomfort whatsoever?" Emily appeared surprised by the inquiry. "Just the typical backache and some pressure, nothing unexpected for 7 months." "Why are you asking?" Alvarez's patience was obviously dwindling. "Officer, we have a retail theft suspect in custody and witnesses waiting. If your canine is unable to maintain appropriate behavior, we should proceed with this process without him." Deborah nodded reluctantly, feeling conflicted between her professional duties and the persistent feeling that Max's behavior needed to be addressed. Throughout the 3 years they'd collaborated, he had never been incorrect when alerting with such urgency. "I understand. Mrs. Thompson, I apologize for the interruption. If you are willing to proceed, I'd like to swiftly record your statement so you can leave." As Emily began describing what she'd observed in the electronics department, Max finally sat at Deborah's direction. He kept his gaze fixed on the pregnant woman, his muscles visibly trembling as he fought against whatever his instincts urged him to do. Again, I sincerely apologize for Max's behavior, Deborah said, concluding Emily's statement, her voice remaining professional despite the lingering embarrassment she felt. The pregnant woman had provided detailed information about the shoplifter's actions, but throughout the entire conversation, Max had remained focused on her, whining softly despite Deborah's quiet corrections. It's really fine, Emily insisted, though she kept a cautious distance from the Belgian Malinois. Animals sometimes react unusually around pregnant women. My sister's cat wouldn't leave her alone during her third trimester. Security Chief Alvarez expressed his displeasure, frequently glancing at his watch. Officer Morgan, we must process the suspect and resume regular operations at this entrance. This incident is causing considerable disruption, he stated. Deborah nodded in agreement, pausing briefly before closing her notebook. Mrs. Thompson, would you be willing to have the mall's first aid responder assess your vitals prior to your departure? This is simply a precaution. Max is specially trained in medical detection, and his actions indicate he's alerting to something. Emily's husband, Mark Thompson, a tall man in a business suit, has now joined them. Is that truly necessary? We are already running behind schedule for her prenatal appointment this afternoon. It would only take a minute, Deborah urged calmly. Max has a recorded history of identifying medical concerns prior to human recognition. Mark noticed a touch of worry in Deborah's tone. He thought it likely wouldn't be a problem. Emily had experienced more backaches than usual today. The mall's first aid responder, Rodriguez, who previously worked as an EMT, arrived quickly with a medical kit. His brief examination showed no immediate issues. Emily's blood pressure was a little high, but remained within the expected range for pregnancy. Her pulse was steady, and she indicated no unusual symptoms beyond the normal discomfort of the third trimester. Everything appeared normal, Rodriguez concluded, as he packed away his stethoscope. Blood pressure was slightly elevated, but that's typical after standing and giving police statements. I suggest resting before your doctor's appointment this afternoon. Mark assisted Emily to her feet, his arms providing support around her waist. There, you see? Nothing to worry about. Your dog likely just smelled something else. Deborah nodded, although she noticed Max's continued alertness. We appreciate your understanding. Please don't hesitate to seek medical care if you notice any changes before your scheduled appointment. As the Thompsons walked away in the direction of the mall's north parking structure, Max pulled on his lead, emitting another whine that caused Deborah's stomach to clench with concern. Officer Morgan, Alvarez's voice interrupted her thoughts. We need to finish processing our suspect, and honestly, I'll have to create an incident report regarding your K-9's conduct. Mall management prioritizes all potential safety concerns, Deborah responded, her frustration hidden by her professional demeanor. Max has not exhibited this behavior previously. He holds certifications in several detection specialties and has a flawless training history. Despite this, his actions caused a disruption and caused alarm for a pregnant woman. This is an issue that cannot be disregarded. Deborah finished the required forms for the shoplifting suspect, coordinating for a patrol unit to convey him to the precinct for booking. During this time, Max appeared remarkably apprehensive, his focus frequently returning to the path the Thompsons had taken, even after they were no longer visible. When they ultimately reached their vehicle, Deborah began to question her partnership. Had she misinterpreted Max's actions? Could there have been a gap in their training that accounted for this awkward situation? The upcoming incident report would necessitate a formal reply and potentially a review of Max's certification, a bureaucratic ordeal that could affect their standing in the K-9 unit. What were you attempting to communicate to me, boy? She inquired softly. As they drove away from the mall, Max's eyes remained focused on the structure they were leaving behind. Over the years, she had come to trust his instincts without question. His abilities had located individuals when technology faltered and uncovered evidence that human investigators overlooked. However, today, his conduct had appeared erratic, lacking professionalism, and potentially harmful to their reputation. Despite this, as they drove back to the precinct, Deborah felt a persistent unease that Max had been attempting to convey something significant, something that everyone, including herself, had disregarded prematurely. The autumn rain grew stronger as Deborah guided their vehicle into the precinct's K-9-unit parking area. Her thoughts returned to the initial time she encountered Max 3 years previously at the regional training facility in eastern Washington. She was recuperating from a shoulder injury, which she had gotten during a chase, an event that made her reconsider her career in patrol. The K-9 division appeared to be an ideal change, blending her law enforcement background with her long-held love of working dogs. Max remained calmly still in his kennel, while other dogs barked and jumped energetically as potential handlers passed by. A certain quality in his concentrated, focused gaze had established a connection with her instantly, an intelligence that appeared to examine her as completely as she was assessing him. He's had 3 handlers already, the kennel master had informed her. Too intense, they'd said. Too focused on blood tracking to the exclusion of other training. Great nose, but they couldn't direct it appropriately. She knelt before his kennel, and Max approached the gate with dignified curiosity, unlike the frenetic energy of the other candidates. He's not washing out, she said with certainty. He's just waiting for someone who understands him. Their first 6 months together had been challenging. Max's extraordinary olfactory abilities sometimes overwhelmed his other training objectives. Although many police dogs receive training to identify various odors, such as narcotics or explosives, Max exhibited an exceptional and almost uncanny ability to detect blood. He was able to identify incredibly small traces that occasionally bypassed crime scene technicians, precisely locating their position with a disturbing accuracy. This remarkable talent significantly impacted their collaboration during a standard missing persons case their first year together. A 6-year-old boy had disappeared during a family hiking trip in the Cascade foothills. Standard search patterns had yielded nothing, and after 36 hours, hope was fading. Deborah had given Max one of the boy's t-shirts, expecting him to track the general scent trail. Instead, Max had detected microscopic blood traces from a small scrape the child had sustained before going missing. The blood was so minimal the parents hadn't even realized their son was injured. Following this nearly invisible trail, Max guided rescuers to an abandoned mining shaft, the location where the boy had fallen and become trapped. Medical personnel subsequently confirmed that without Max's exceptional detection abilities, they would not have found the child in time. Their most significant case occurred during the Highway 18 bridge collapse. Amid the chaos of broken concrete and twisted rebar, Max systematically located survivors by detecting blood through layers of debris. A notable example occurred when he firmly advocated for a specific area of collapsed roadway, even though thermal imaging revealed no heat signatures. Rescue personnel subsequently located a young woman experiencing hypothermia. Her core temperature was so low that sensors failed to register it. However, Max identified microscopic blood originating from her internal injuries, perceiving it through 20 feet of concrete. Following the incident, researchers from Pacific Northwest University's medical detection program contacted the department regarding a study of Max's abilities. Subsequent, controlled tests validated what Deborah already knew. Max could detect blood at concentrations as low as a few parts per billion, and even more remarkably, he could differentiate between various types of bleeding, appearing to prioritize based on the severity or source of the blood. Dr. Eleanor Patel, the program's lead researcher, had been especially intrigued by Max's seeming ability to detect internal bleeding that presented with no external signs. He's not simply smelling the blood, she explained to Deborah during one testing session. He's detecting these specific biomarkers released when certain tissues are damaged. It's as if he possesses a portable medical laboratory in his nose. This training was integrated into their standard certification process, with Max's capabilities detailed in peer-reviewed research articles and specialized law enforcement journals. His detection skills had identified gunshot victims concealed within buildings, determined internal injuries in car accident victims who presented without visible trauma, and even alerted to a brain aneurysm in a colleague during a routine training exercise. Despite this, those remarkable talents had been disregarded by all, even herself, when Max had concentrated on Emily Thompson. Now, sitting in the parking lot, rain beating on the roof of their car, Deborah resolved to act. Max had never been mistaken when expressing that degree of concern, not once in 3 years. She retrieved her phone and searched for Emily Thompson, Seattle. A social media profile surfaced instantly. The woman from the mall, whose profile picture showed her smiling next to her husband, appeared pregnant to a lesser extent in the image. Her listed previous employment was Thompson & Associates Legal Services. Deborah paused for only a moment before entering the address into her GPS. Max had relied on her judgment repeatedly throughout their partnership. It might be the right time to reciprocate that trust fully, even if it carried the risk of an official warning. The Bellevue Heights apartments presented a sharp difference from the nearby area, a contemporary high-rise with expansive windows reflecting the overcast sky. Deborah had changed into regular clothing, keeping her badge safely tucked in her jacket pocket. Max was in the passenger seat, his work vest off, but his specialized training collar still fastened. "This is likely nothing," Deborah said to him as they waited parked near the building entrance. "Should I be incorrect, this unsanctioned follow-up investigation could jeopardize both our professional lives." Max's unwavering look suggested unwavering confidence, his posture rigid with the same readiness he exhibited at the mall. When Emily Thompson's blue SUV entered the building's underground parking area, his response was instant, a quiet signal and movement forward that Deborah had come to recognize as unwavering belief. "All right, colleague," she said, starting her engine, "but we will proceed cautiously." The building's concierge halted them at the lobby entrance, observing Max with professional concern. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but pets aren't allowed in the common areas without prior arrangement." Deborah presented her badge, maintaining a conversational tone rather than an authoritative one. "I'm Officer Morgan, Seattle PD. I'm following up on an incident report involving one of your residents, Emily Thompson. It will only take a few minutes." The concierge paused, then placed a brief call that seemed to resolve any issues. 18th floor, apartment 1802. "I will inform Mr. Thompson that you are coming up." The elevator journey provided Deborah time to reevaluate her decision once more. She possessed no legitimate reason for her presence here, nor a case number to justify the follow-up. Should the Thompsons lodge a complaint about harassment, she would lack departmental protection. Despite Max's persistent focus, that characteristic intensity which had previously saved lives, it reinforced her determination. Mark Thompson opened the door, having removed his earlier business attire and opting for more relaxed clothing. His face shifted from polite curiosity to recognition and then to exhaustion. "Officer Morgan, is there an issue with Emily's statement?" "No, there wasn't," Deborah confirmed. "I wanted to discuss what happened this morning in person. My canine partner exhibited atypical behavior, and in my experience, that necessitates a reevaluation." She indicated Max, who stood attentively nearby. "I assure you he is entirely safe and remarkably well-trained." Mark's stance remained cautious, but he moved to allow passage. "Emily is currently at rest. She has reported increased discomfort this afternoon, but the physician states that is expected at 30 weeks. The apartment was spacious and tastefully furnished, featuring floor-to-ceiling windows that provided a panoramic view of Lake Washington. Emily reclined on a sectional sofa, appearing more fatigued than she had earlier that morning. A throw blanket covered her legs, even though the apartment was warm. "Officer Morgan?" Emily's surprise was clear as she attempted to sit up straighter. She asked, "Is something wrong with my witness statement?" Max's reaction was immediate and unmistakable. His body tightened, his nose working quickly as he focused intently on Emily, mirroring the focus he's displayed at the mall, but now with heightened urgency. "I apologize for this unusual visit," Deborah began, keeping a firm grip on Max's lead. "But I wanted to check on you." Max is specially trained in medical detection, and his behavior this morning indicated he detected something concerning. Emily's hand moved protectively over her abdomen. The mall first aid person reported everything was fine. Deborah conceded that it was likely. However, Max had a proven ability to identify medical concerns prior to the onset of typical signs. He had been involved in medical research projects at Pacific Northwest University, consistently demonstrating a flawless record of detection accuracy. Mark approached his wife, his posture revealing a cautious disbelief. "You're implying your dog possesses knowledge regarding my wife's health that her obstetrician lacks?" Deborah selected her subsequent phrasing with deliberation. "Max possesses specialized training in blood detection, enabling him to identify internal bleeding prior to the emergence of external symptoms. He has located disaster victims beneath rubble by detecting microscopic blood traces through 20 feet of concrete. Emily shifted uncomfortably on the sofa, wincing slightly. "I've just been having some back pain and pressure," she said. "The doctor said it's normal, especially since I've been on my feet more than usual today." Max abruptly accelerated with such resolve that Deborah had to steady herself. Rather than barking, he whimpered anxiously, employing the sound he reserved for search and rescue missions when he'd found a seriously hurt individual. "When is your doctor's appointment?" Deborah inquired, her worry increasing as she noticed Emily's paleness and the slight tremor in her hands. "Not until 4, Mark replied, glancing at his watch. "About an hour from now." Deborah made a decision that could end her career if she was wrong. "Mr. Thompson, I strongly recommend you take your wife to the hospital now. Not in an hour. Right now." The assessment was based on your dog's behavior. Mark's incredulity was unmistakable. "That seems..." Mark started, but was interrupted. "It hurts," Emily said. Her voice had changed, fear edging into her tone as she pressed both hands against her abdomen. "It's getting worse, not better, and I feel dizzy when I stand up." Deborah quietly stated that those could be symptoms of placental abruption, referencing her emergency response training and the potential for internal bleeding that conventional examinations might miss in early stages. Emily's face grew even paler. "My sister experienced that with her second baby. The doctor had mentioned that I have some risk factors." Mark's skepticism vanished immediately, seeing the fear in his wife's voice. "I'll get the car," he said. Deborah countered, "I think we should call an ambulance," already reaching for her phone. If Max's observations are accurate, each minute is crucial. While she contacted 911, requesting urgent medical assistance for a potential obstetric emergency, Deborah observed Max continuing his intense monitoring of Emily. The expression in his amber eyes was familiar to her, drawn from their most vital search missions, the unwavering conviction that had guided rescuers to survivors whom others considered lost. The sound of the approaching ambulance broke through the usual sounds of the affluent neighborhood. Mark knelt beside Emily, his previous doubts gone, replaced by clear worry as he held her hand. Her condition worsened quickly in the 12 minutes since Deborah had made the call, her skin now damp, her breathing faint. "The ambulance is nearly here," Deborah told them, having ensured the paramedics could reach the apartment. Max stayed exactly where he was next to her, his vigilance unchanged, but his actions were now restrained and professional. The paramedics arrived with skill deficiency, 2 experienced emergency responders who didn't pause for greetings as they started their evaluation. They functioned with the coordinated accuracy developed over years of collaboration, one starting intravenous access while the other observed vital signs and asked pointed questions regarding the pregnancy. At 30 weeks pregnant, Emily reported increased pain and pressure today, along with dizziness when standing, as the lead paramedic worked. "Any vaginal bleeding?" he asked. "No," Emily answered, her voice weak. "Just the pain and feeling faint. It's been getting worse all day." Deborah approached. "My canine partner, Max, is specifically trained in blood detection. His behavior suggests possible internal bleeding, potentially a placental abruption." The paramedic glanced at Max, then back to Deborah, recognition dawning. Were Morgan and Max involved in the bridge collapse, the team responsible for locating the hypothermic victim? "Yes," Deborah verified, feeling a wave of relief knowing she wouldn't have to explain the atypical medical warning. The paramedic acknowledged, immediately modifying his plan. "Possible concealed abruption? Let's proceed now. Establish a wide-open 4 and prepare for obstetrical trauma at Harbor Medical." To Mark, he added, "We're transporting your wife to Harbor instead of Seattle General. This facility boasts the region's leading high-risk obstetrics team." Emily was moved to the stretcher with careful urgency. Her condition was deteriorating as her body attempted to counteract the blood loss, a detail only Max was able to discern. The paramedics permitted Mark to accompany them in the ambulance. Before the doors closed, the lead paramedic addressed Deborah. "Are you coming? If your K-9 detected anything our equipment isn't showing, the doctors will want to know precisely how he alerted." Deborah acknowledged, trailing behind in her car with Max secured in his compartment. The ambulance navigated the traffic at a measured pace, its lights and sirens clearing a path through the crowded roadways as it proceeded to the waterfront hospital complex. During the journey, Deborah's police radio transmitted an urgent notification from the ambulance. Patient becoming unresponsive, BP declining, potential obstetric hemorrhage underway, estimated time of arrival at Harbor Medical, for minutes. Deborah gripped the steering wheel, keeping pace with the ambulance. Max, unable to decipher the radio communication, noticed the shift in her stance and whimpered gently from his space. "Good boy," she said. "You were right. You knew when nobody else did." Harbor Medical's emergency entrance was already ready upon their arrival. A trauma team stood by, prepared with equipment for both Emily and the baby. Deborah observed the transfer of Emily from the ambulance, the medical personnel moving with the focused urgency characteristic of serious incidents. A tall woman in surgical scrubs approached as Emily was wheeled into the hospital, questioning the paramedics before addressing Deborah. "I'm Dr. Keisha Williams, obstetrical trauma," she stated. "They tell me your K9 detected this before conventional symptoms appeared?" Deborah confirmed. "Yes, Max is specialized in blood detection. He exhibited significant concern regarding Mrs. Thompson around 9:30 a.m. this morning, followed by heightened alarm when we examined her at her apartment around 2:45 p.m. Dr. Williams appeared contemplative, not dismissive. The first ultrasound does not reveal a clear placental abruption, but her declining blood pressure and other symptoms indicate a possible internal hemorrhage. Could your dog's behavior assist us in pinpointing the source of the bleeding?" Deborah confirmed his capability, expressing surprise but appreciating the doctor's candor. "He is trained to identify the most potent origin of the smell." The doctor then decided to bring him in, stating, "We are preparing for emergency surgery, but if your dog can provide us with any further details regarding the site of the bleeding, it could save valuable time." Deborah guided Max through the emergency department, disregarding the surprised glances from his staff as they entered the trauma bay, where Emily was now encircled by medical equipment. The monitoring devices indicated her heart rate was elevated, and her blood pressure was dangerously low, even with fluids being administered through 2 IVs. "Emily, we're going to perform an emergency cesarean," Dr. Williams was explaining. "The baby is showing signs of distress, and your condition is deteriorating." Rapid action was essential. Max proceeded with impeccable control as Deborah positioned him nearer the bed. His nose systematically scanned across Emily's body before he settled quickly, placing his paw deliberately and steadily on the upper right quadrant of her abdomen, a trained signal indicating the most concentrated source of the scent he was following. "Upper right quadrant," Dr. Williams observed. "Possible right-sided placental abruption with retroplacental bleeding. Let's move her 2 or 3 now, prepare for a possible DIC protocol, and have the neonatal team on standby for premature delivery." As they wheeled Emily toward the operating room, she reached out weakly toward Deborah and Max. "Thank you," she whispered. Mark stood still for a moment as his wife was rushed away, medical terminology passing around him too quickly to understand. Then he turned to Deborah, his face pale. "The doctor stated, if we had waited until our scheduled appointment, it would have been—" He was unable to complete the sentence. "Your wife is in good hands," Deborah reassured him, despite the seriousness of the situation being clear in the controlled disarray surrounding them. Harbor Medical possesses an exceptional trauma team. A nurse came forward to direct Mark to the surgical waiting area, noting that the procedure would probably take a minimum of 1 hour. He paused briefly to kneel beside Max before going with her. "I didn't believe," he stated quietly, his voice heavy with feeling. "But you knew. How did you know when no one else could discern it?" Deborah wished she could offer a less complicated explanation than the intricate mix of genetics, training, and the unexplainable connection between Handler and Canine that had previously saved lives. "He's special," she replied, "and he's never wrong when he alerts like that." The surgical waiting room possessed the characteristic stillness often found in hospitals, a place where time appeared to hang between hope and worry. Mark Thompson walked back and forth across the room, pausing sometimes to look out the rain-streaked windows at the harbor below, then continuing his steady steps. Deborah remained still in the corner, Max settled at her feet, yet watchful. his training enabling him to stay composed within the medical setting despite likely detecting stress from the humans nearby. "You don't need to remain," Mark stated abruptly, ending the silence that had lasted almost 30 minutes. "You've already exceeded your required responsibilities." Deborah responded, "I'd like to observe this conclusion, unless you desire solitude." Mark shook his head, returning to the molded plastic chair beside her. "No, you and Max are the reason we're here in time." He paused. "They're not just empty words when I say Emily and the baby would—" He swallowed hard, unable to complete the thought. The surgical liaison nurse had updated them once, 20 minutes into the procedure, with the measured optimism that medical professionals cultivate. Emily was stable, the surgery progressing, more information would come when available. The carefully neutral phrasing had done little to ease the tension visible on Mark's face. "Can I ask," he began after another pause, "how did your partner know?" "The doctors performed tests this morning during her routine checkup and found no cause for concern." Deborah paused, contemplating how to explain something that medical researchers were still investigating. "Max's sense of smell is approximately 40 times more powerful than ours, but it's more than just sensitivity. He had received specialized training to detect blood in quantities undetectable by standard testing. Crucially, he could distinguish between normal blood presence and unusual bleeding patterns. However, Mark pointed out there was no visible blood. Even now, the doctor explained, it was a concealed abruption. The blood didn't need to be visible to him. The body releases specific biomarkers when internal bleeding occurs. Tiny alterations in blood chemistry, undetectable through skin, breath, or even clothing, don't escape Max's awareness." Their conversation was paused as the door opened, showing Dr. Williams still wearing surgical scrubs, her expression carefully neutral, yet subtly conveying the relief that accompanied good news. "Mr. Thompson," she started, sitting in the chair opposite them, "your wife is stable now. An emergency cesarean delivery was performed, and we are currently treating the placental abruption that caused significant internal bleeding." "And the baby?" Mark asked, his voice quiet. "Your daughter is in neonatal intensive care. She is premature at 30 weeks, but is breathing independently with supplemental oxygen. Her vital signs are stable, which is notable given the situation." The visible strain lessened from Mark's body, although worry remained on his face. "Is it possible for me to see them?" "Emily is recovering now. She can be seen briefly in approximately 20 minutes. The baby will remain in the NICU, but you may visit her as well once Emily is settled." Dr. Williams then focused on Deborah and Max. "Officer Morgan, I wish to thank you and your partner for your actions. The surgical team verified a concealed placental abruption precisely where your dog indicated." "How critical was it?" Deborah inquired softly. The doctor's formal composure eased a bit. "Throughout my 15 years practicing obstetrical medicine, I have seldom observed a concealed abruption advance to such a degree without noticeable external signs. Had Mrs. Thompson arrived at her scheduled appointment, both she and the baby would likely have been in critical condition, potentially past the point where we could have provided effective intervention." Mark covered his face with his hands, the full weight of how near they had come to a tragic outcome finally registering with him. Dr. Williams added, "It's quite notable that your dog identified this issue at the mall earlier today, prior to Mrs. Thompson showing any noticeable signs. The pathology report indicates the abruption was in its initial stages then. There was microscopic bleeding that wouldn't have been picked up by standard screening methods. This aligns with his training, as Deborah clarified. Max located faint traces of blood, several hours old and too minimal for crime scene technicians to identify without specialized chemical analysis. Fortunately, his abilities helped save 2 lives today." Dr. Williams observed, consulting her pager. "The obstetrics department would be keen to learn more about the canine program. They are continuously searching for improved techniques for early detection of pregnancy complications." After the doctor departed, Mark remained silent for several minutes, processing everything. Finally, he turned to Deborah. "I dismissed him completely this morning. I thought it was just an untrained animal making a scene," he said. "Most people would have reacted the same way," Deborah assured him. "That's why I came to your apartment, despite having no official reason to follow up. I've learned to trust Max's alerts, even when they seem improbable." How did this happen without anyone noticing? Mark asked. The inquiry seemed aimed more at himself than at Deborah. Emily had a checkup just last week. All results were normal. Dr. Williams noted it was concealed. The bleeding was situated behind the placenta, not externally. Such instances are notably dangerous as they frequently lack symptoms until they reach a critical state. The liaison nurse reappeared, letting them know Emily had been moved to recovery and Mark could visit briefly. He stood up, then paused. Would you and Max join as well? For just a moment, I believe Emily would like to express her gratitude to both of you. The recovery room was softly lit and peaceful, except for the consistent beeping of the medical devices. Emily was positioned a little upright, her skin still fair, but without the bluish tinge of severe blood loss. Her eyes lit up upon seeing Mark, and then grew wide with surprise as Deborah and Max entered behind him. You remained, she said faintly, reaching out her hand. Thank you doesn't seem sufficient. Deborah moved closer to the bed, Max keeping his heels firmly planted. I'm just glad we followed up, she said. How are you feeling? Emily responded with a faint smile, like I've been hit by a truck. She added, but they say both I and Charlotte are going to be okay. Charlotte? Deborah inquired. Mark confirmed. Charlotte Morgan Thompson. We just decided on the middle name. It seemed appropriate to name her partly after the officer who saved her life, he said, his voice catching slightly. Deborah experienced a sudden emotion that constricted her throat. That's quite an honor, but Max deserves the recognition. He was the one who recognized something was amiss. Emily's eyes moved towards the Belgian Malinois, who was sitting attentively by Deborah. The doctor explained the situation, stating that Deborah had a concealed placental abruption that wouldn't have presented symptoms until it was too late. Your dog detected it hours before any medical equipment could have. Deborah explained that his nose can detect blood in concentrations as low as a few parts per billion. The research team at Pacific Northwest University continues to try and understand exactly how he distinguishes between normal blood presence and abnormal bleeding patterns. Well, whatever he sensed, Emily said, he knew before anyone else that something was seriously wrong. The doctor said, by the time we reached my scheduled appointment, she trailed off, her hand tightening around Mark's. Focusing on the encouraging aspects, the nurse interjected gently. Your daughter is progressing remarkably well, considering she was born at 30 weeks. You will be able to visit her in the NICU after you have had a little more rest. As preparations were made for Emily to get the rest she needed, Max did something unexpected. He moved a little closer, his nose softly touching Emily's hand where it lay on the blanket. The brief touch ended as he resumed his place next to Deborah, yet it brought tears to Emily's eyes. It's almost as if he knows, she murmured. Deborah affirmed with a nod, her own throat constricted with feeling. I believe he does. The neonatal intensive care unit functioned according to a unique cadence, separate from the regulated disorder of the emergency department below. Quiet tones and delicate actions fostered an environment of meticulous accuracy. While medical staff cared for the unit's small patients, 3 days elapsed since the emergency surgery. Deborah stood outside the glass-walled room, watching as Emily sat beside the incubator holding her daughter. Charlotte Morgan Thompson, born 8 weeks premature and weighing just over 3 pounds, had surpassed initial medical expectations. Despite needing continued oxygen and feeding support, she demonstrated significant strength, a quality neonatal specialist linked to the swift action that had avoided extended oxygen deficiency. She has your fighting spirit, Deborah overheard Mark say to his wife as the sliding door opened to allow another visitor. Dr. Williams came forward, holding a clipboard, her usual professional appearance relaxed by a sincere smile as she addressed the new parents. Deborah had initially intended to leave, feeling she shouldn't interrupt their private medical conversation. However, before she could depart, Mark noticed her through the window and gestured for her to join them, showing that her presence was appreciated. Officer Morgan, Dr. Williams acknowledged as Deborah entered. I was just reviewing Charlotte's progress with the Thompsons. She's exceeding our expectations for a 30-week delivery following placental abruption. Emily looked up from the incubator, her smile showing exhaustion. The transfusions and emergency surgery had taken their toll, but the medical team had assured her that with time, she would recover completely. We were just discussing arranging for Max to meet her formally once she regains some strength. The NICU supervisor has approved this as an exception. He would appreciate that, Deborah responded, feeling moved by the action. He is currently situated in the K-9 unit vehicle. Department guidelines prohibit him from entering medical facilities without explicit permission. Dr. Williams recorded a note on her clipboard. I have issued that authorization, effective immediately. I have discussed with the hospital administrator the possibility of creating a pilot program involving your K-9 unit for high-risk obstetric screenings. Your partner's capabilities could potentially transform how we identify early pregnancy complications. This idea wasn't completely surprising. Max's exceptional detection skills have previously drawn attention from the medical field, but using them in obstetrics presents a promising new area of exploration. Deborah considered the research potential involving other pregnant women, focusing on complications that could be identified before they escalated into life-threatening emergencies. She volunteered to discuss the idea with her superiors, noting that the department already had established protocols for specialized deployments in medical settings. Mark stood beside his wife, his hand gently resting on the incubator holding their daughter. I found it difficult to accept Dr. Williams' explanation of Emily's condition. The placenta had started to detach from the uterine wall that morning, coinciding with the moment your dog first alerted at the mall. The doctor detailed that the bleeding was entirely internal, adopting a clinical and precise tone. She clarified that standard screening methods would not have identified the issue at that stage. When Emily arrived at the hospital, approximately 20% of her blood volume had been lost into the concealed space behind the placenta. If the condition had advanced another 2 to 3 hours, the potential consequences would likely have been severe. Emily reached through the incubator's access port to gently touch her daughter's tiny hand. The NICU doctor explained that babies born following placental abruption frequently experience complications related to oxygen deprivation. However, Charlotte's test results are all normal. Dr. Williams clarified that we were able to deliver her because the placental separation hadn't advanced to the point where it would have jeopardized her oxygen supply. Typically, in situations like this, patients don't receive medical attention until they display significant symptoms, and the fetus has frequently been in distress for hours. A sense of the potential severity of the situation lingered briefly before Mark spoke. Hospital leadership inquired about our willingness to contribute to a case study for their medical journal. The focus would be on documenting an instance where a police canine identified a critical medical condition prior to the detection by conventional medical technology. I believe this is an excellent proposition, Deborah stated. Max's abilities warrant greater awareness within the medical field. There could be other potential uses we haven't yet explored. A soft chime from Dr. Williams's pager interrupted the discussion. Having reviewed the message, she stepped away to care for another patient, stating she would return to talk about Charlotte's feeding progress. Once she left, Emily took Deborah's hand. I can't help but think about how things might have turned out differently, Emily said. If you hadn't relied on Max to follow up, he's the one who should be recognized, Deborah replied. I nearly dismissed him myself. Were it not for our shared past, and the numerous occasions his instincts proved accurate even when they appeared unlikely, I might have considered his actions an unusual occurrence. Will you incur any repercussions for observing us without proper authorization? Mark inquired, his voice filled with worry. Deborah replied with a smile. Actually, the opposite is true. After the department became aware of the situation, they've provided complete backing. The possibility of favorable media coverage and the potential for advancements in medical research have transformed what might have been a routine matter into what my sergeant described as a public relations opportunity. Observing through the glass wall of the NICU, she noticed other small infants in their incubators, all supported by the equipment intended to maximize their chances of survival. She wondered how many of their mothers might have gained from earlier identification of complications. What number of future cases might be identified sooner? Ideally, if Max's abilities could be consistently used in medical screening. Would you and Max consider being Charlotte's godparents? Emily asked abruptly, the question surprising Deborah completely. I know it's unusual, But then so is having your life saved by a police dog with a supernatural nose. The unexpected offer moved Deborah profoundly. Throughout her career in law enforcement, she had rescued individuals and impacted numerous cases. Yet this situation felt distinct, more intimate, and deeper in significance. "We would be honored," she replied concisely, recognizing that this case had altered not only the Thompsons' lives but also her own understanding of her collaboration with Max. She had always been impressed by his exceptional skills, but now she realized that relying on those abilities could go beyond standard work rules and processes when something truly critical was involved. As she departed the NICU to get Max from the car, Deborah considered the connection that had led her to trust her colleague's judgment, even though every reasonable consideration suggested otherwise. Certain bonds transcended typical understanding, be it between a mother and child, a handler and dog, or the unusual capacity of a dog to perceive what advanced medical equipment missed until the situation was critical. The winter sun stretched shadows across the main entrance of Harbor Medical Center as Deborah led Max through the automatic doors. While they had been visiting weekly throughout Emily's lengthy recovery, today held a significant moment: Charlotte's formal release following 31 days in neonatal intensive care. The Belgian Malinois moved with impeccable discipline despite the excitement visible in his attentive stance. He had adjusted surprisingly well to the hospital setting during their earlier visits, preserving his professional attitude even as staff paused to appreciate him. He chose a specialized therapy dog designation, temporarily granted for this visit, instead of his usual working vest. The Thompson family was located in the NICU family room, where balloons and a small group of medical staff who had cared for Charlotte during her first month were gathered. The premature infant, who had previously appeared impossibly tiny, now weighed nearly 5 pounds. Her improved condition was clear in her more alert gaze and stronger movements. Emily, as mandated by hospital policy for discharge, remained in a wheelchair despite her physical recovery from surgery. A smile spread across her face when she noticed Deborah and Max entering. "The guests of honor," she announced, prompting the assembled medical team to turn. "Everyone, this is Officer Deborah Morgan and K-9 Officer Max, the team that saved both our lives." Dr. Williams approached. Perfect timing. "We were just about to have a small celebration before discharge. Charlotte has surpassed all developmental milestones." Mark came forward, gently holding his daughter. The change in him was striking. He had previously questioned Max's methods, but now he knelt with care to position his daughter at eye level with the Belgian Malinois. "Charlotte," he spoke quietly, even though the baby was too young to comprehend, "this is Max. He's the reason you and your mom are both here today." Max stayed completely still, his training enabling him to evaluate the little human without any actions that could be perceived as threatening. Following a brief period of careful observation, he performed an action that moved Deborah to tears. He slowly lowered his head in a gesture of remarkable tenderness, his nose delicately sniffing the baby's blanket before he returned to his poised sitting posture. "He remembers," Emily said softly. "Somehow he understands who she is." A representative from Pacific Northwest University's Medical Detection Program, Dr. Patel, was present for this important event. For the past month, she had held several sessions analyzing Max's capabilities, integrating the insights from Charlotte's case into her continuous research. Dr. Patel explained to the assembled medical personnel that the truly notable aspect wasn't solely his ability to identify the abruption prior to the onset of typical symptoms, but also his ability to distinguish it from standard pregnancy blood markers. His nose detected the precise biomarkers indicative of placental separation, a capability beyond the scope of our present screening procedures. A NICU nurse who had been involved in Charlotte's care from her initial arrival expressed astonishment. "In 23 years of neonatal nursing, I have encountered numerous placental abruption cases. The results are seldom this favorable, particularly with concealed abruptions, where diagnosis usually occurs only after pronounced symptoms manifest. That's why we are implementing the pilot program next month," Dr. Williams added. "Officer Morgan and Max will visit our high-risk pregnancy clinic twice weekly to screen patients. We are developing a research protocol to document and analyze his alerts." Emily reached out to stroke Max's head, a gesture the disciplined canine accepted with dignified patience. "We've been told that many women with my condition don't reach the hospital in time," she said quietly. Without immediate intervention, both mother and baby often, she didn't need to complete the thought. Everyone in the room understood the seriousness of what had nearly happened and what Max's extraordinary abilities had prevented. Mark carefully returned Charlotte to Emily's arms, the baby now sleeping peacefully, unaware of her medical journey or the significance of this day. "We wanted to give you something," he said to Deborah, retrieving a small package from beside the wheelchair. "While it may seem modest in comparison to your previous generosity, we wished for you to receive this." Within the securely packaged box was a framed photograph depicting Charlotte and her incubator, showcasing her small hand clasped around Emily's finger. Accompanying it, a silver, badge-shaped medallion bore the inscription Canine Hero, Max, along with Charlotte's birth date. "The department already presented us with formal recognition last week," Deborah remarked, moved by this thoughtful personal touch. Emily clarified that this wasn't about formal acknowledgement. "It was a gift from our family to yours, as you and Max have become to us." While they made arrangements to depart the hospital, Charlotte was safely secured in her car seat. With medical staff providing concluding directions, Deborah considered the remarkable sequence of occurrences that led them to this point. What started as a standard shoplifting call had fundamentally altered not only the Thompsons' lives, but potentially the future of maternal-fetal medicine. The hospital administrator had spoken with her earlier that week regarding the possibility of expanding the pilot program into a lasting screening initiative, one that could eventually be mirrored in hospitals nationwide. Max's capabilities, previously viewed as exceptional even within the specialized field of canine units, could potentially lead to a completely novel method for the early detection of pregnancy complications. As they accompanied the family to their vehicle, Deborah noted Max's persistent attentiveness, not the frantic vigilance of that initial meeting, but the content focus of a protector whose responsibility was now secure. Certain bonds defied easy understanding, whether built over years of collaboration or forged in a sudden crisis when intuition trumped formal instruction. As they arrived at the parking area, Emily spoke to Deborah for a final moment. "The doctor informed me yesterday that if we had delayed even 2 more hours, neither Charlotte nor I would have made it. I can never adequately express my gratitude for heeding Max's concerns when everyone else disregarded them." Deborah observed Mark fastening the car seat, Charlotte sleeping soundly inside. "That's what partnership signifies," she stated quietly. "Occasionally, one must have faith, despite not completely comprehending." This feeling resonated as much within her connection with Max as it did regarding the remarkable rapport they had cultivated with the Thompson family. A note that frequently, the most meaningful relationships arise from instances where we choose to listen to intuition over reason, believe instead of question, and connect instead of withdraw. Have you ever observed an animal recognizing something before humans were able to perceive it? The remarkable story of Max and Officer Morgan illustrates that our animal companions often sense threats that are unseen by us. Their heightened senses, especially their remarkable ability to detect anomalies, occasionally alert them to medical conditions, natural disasters, or other threats well before we become aware. Throughout history, accounts have arisen of dogs detecting cancer in their owners, sensing oncoming seizures, or even alerting to significant changes in blood sugar levels. Although scientific research continues to examine these extraordinary capabilities, it remains undeniable that animals occasionally detect things that even advanced medical technology misses. Considering the critical emergency experienced by Emily and Charlotte Thompson, should trained police dogs be utilized more frequently in medical environments? Max's remarkable capability to identify a hidden placental abruption hours prior to standard signs emerging indicates possible, yet unrealized, possibilities for canine teams extending past typical law enforcement duties. With medical detection dogs increasingly utilized for conditions like diabetes and epilepsy, possibly law enforcement canines, through specialized training, could fill essential gaps in healthcare screening. What's the most astonishing animal instinct story you've encountered? You may have observed a pet acting unusually before an earthquake, a service dog alerting to an undetected medical emergency, or another striking example of animal perception that went beyond common understanding. We are interested in hearing about your experiences with these exceptional bonds between humans and animals. If Max and Officer Morgan's story resonated with you, please like and leave a comment sharing your thoughts. These incredible canine stories showcase the remarkable bond between handlers and their four-legged partners, connections that sometimes transcend explanation and occasionally save lives when it matters most. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We share new police canine stories regularly, each highlighting the remarkable abilities of these highly trained animals and the officers who work alongside them. Make sure you hit the notification bell so you don't miss a new upload. Watch our previous canine hero stories, which are appearing on your screen now. From drug detection and criminal apprehension to search and rescue operations, these incredible working dogs continue to prove that sometimes the most powerful tools in law enforcement have four paws and an extraordinary nose. We'll see you tomorrow with another brand new video. An airport police dog persistently alerted to an abandoned bag. Could it potentially contain explosives? Hesitantly, security personnel opened the bag, and the contents necessitated an immediate evacuation. Here's the full story. Before we proceed, please share in the comments below where you're watching from. And if you enjoy compelling police dog stories such as this one, remember to subscribe to stay updated on future content. A sterile glow from the fluorescent lights of Terminal 5 at O'Hare International Airport illuminated the polished floors as travelers rushed by, pulling rolling suitcases and carry-ons. A continuous hum of activity filled the air, punctuated by announcements over the PA system and conversations in a mix of languages. It was just past 7 a.m. as the morning international arrivals began to arrive, bringing the usual atmosphere that Officer Benjamin Linus knew from his 6 years with the airport's K-9 unit. Benjamin straightened his dark blue uniform jacket, his badge reflecting the overhead light as he observed the increasing crowd. Beside him, Lexus, his Dutch Shepherd partner for 4 years, stayed in perfect heel position, his dark eyes carefully examining the constant flow of passengers. Another day in paradise, huh, boy? Benjamin murmured, briefly scratching behind Lexus's alert ears. The shepherd leaned into his touch before returning to his vigilant posture. Morning, Linus, Officer Teresa Wong called from her post near customs. Lexus looking sharp today. Benjamin nodded in greeting. Just finished training recertification yesterday. Passed with flying colors. As usual, Security Director Melissa Harrington's voice crackled through Benjamin's radio. Attention all units. We are experiencing increased passenger volume in Terminal 5 today because of rerouted flights from Milwaukee. Please maintain a visible presence near checkpoints. Copy that, Benjamin responded, already adjusting their patrol route mentally. K-9 Unit 7 will cover the east side checkpoints. Just another day at O'Hare, he thought. Routine, predictable, secure. As they turned the corner towards the less crowded international departures area, Benjamin noticed a subtle shift in the tension of Lexus's leash, the first sign that this day would be anything but ordinary. The change in Lexus's behavior was slight but unmistakable, a sudden, focused alertness that altered his usual patrol posture into something more intense. The shepherd's ears moved forward, his tail straightened, and his nose began working more intensely, taking in the air with increased urgency. "What is it, boy?" Benjamin asked softly, immediately noticing his partner's change in behavior. Lexus pulled gently on his lead, guiding Benjamin towards the eastern wing of the International Departures Terminal, a section currently undergoing renovation and less crowded than the main concourse. Early morning light poured in through large windows, revealing dust motes suspended in the air above the section with restricted seating. Benjamin surveyed the area, trying to understand what had caught Lexus's attention. The space was largely unoccupied, with only a handful of passengers asleep in chairs or absorbed in their electronics. Initially, nothing seemed out of place, but then Lexus abruptly moved towards a row of seats along the wall, his focus fixed on something located underneath them. The item was a bag, a medium-sized black duffel with no visible identification tag. It was positioned perfectly centered under the middle seat, partially hidden from a quick glance, but fully visible from their present viewpoint. Benjamin's training engaged instantly. "Secure," he instructed, and Lexus remained perfectly still, keeping his attention on the bag. However, something seemed unusual about Lexus's behavior. During training for explosive or narcotic detection, Lexus exhibited distinct alert behaviors, a passive sit for explosives and active pawing for narcotics. This was an anomaly. The dog's body was stiff with tension, and a low, sustained growl emanated from his throat, a sound Benjamin had seldom heard from his usually calm partner. Lexus, check. Benjamin instructed, initiating the inspection signal. Rather than approaching the bag and indicating as he had been trained to do, Lexus retreated several steps. His growl deepened. His tail was now completely straight, hackles slightly raised, a posture unlike his usual alert stance. A passing custodian noticed them and began to approach. Benjamin raised his hand, stopping the man. "Sir, please step back," he ordered calmly but firmly. As if reacting to the newcomer, Lexus suddenly emitted 3 sharp, staccato barks, a sound so unlike his usual alerting behavior that it sent a chill down Benjamin's spine. Maintaining focus on the bag, Benjamin activated his radio. "Control, this is K9 Unit 7 at Terminal 5, East Wing, Section C. I have an unattended bag exhibiting atypical K9 alert behavior. I request backup and implementation of area evacuation protocol." The dispatcher replied, "Copy that. K9 Unit 7 security personnel are on their way. Commence standard abandoned bag protocol." Benjamin then began clearing the surrounding area, speaking with a firm but controlled tone to avoid causing alarm. "Esteemed guests, please gather your possessions and proceed calmly to the main concourse. Security personnel will guide you from that location." As the last non-employees left the area, a security team arrived, led by Lieutenant Jack Cassidy, the airport's senior security officer. His characteristic worried expression intensified as he evaluated the scene. "What's the situation, Linus?" Cassidy inquired, gesturing towards the bag. "Unattended bag, sir. No discernible markings, placed intentionally beneath the chairs." Cassidy's gaze moved to Lexus, who stayed focused on the target, their body rigid. "Your dog providing an unexpected alert?" Benjamin responded, worry clear in his tone. "This isn't his standard explosive alert, nor is it a narcotics detection. I'm not familiar with him behaving in this manner." Cassidy's face grew stern. "Unfamiliar with this reaction? What is the significance of that? He should be alerting or he shouldn't be." A second security team arrived, bringing their usual detection tools. The lead technician, Raj Patel, started preparing a portable X-ray machine, observing Lexus with a professional gaze. "Let's examine what's inside before we decide anything," Cassidy instructed. "Sir," Benjamin insisted, "I've been working with Lexus for 4 years. When he behaves like this, there's a valid explanation." As evacuation procedures began, Benjamin's thoughts returned to the day he first encountered Lexus, 3 years prior to their formal partnership. The recollection was clear: a scorching July afternoon at the Homeland Security Training Facility in Virginia, when Benjamin was attending specialized K9 handler training. "This one's different," Trainer Martinez stated, guiding Benjamin toward an isolated kennel separate from the other training dogs. A Dutch Shepherd, roughly 2 years old, was discovered during a raid on a trafficking operation near the Mexican border. Benjamin had looked into the kennel, anticipating an aggressive or distressed animal. However, he encountered an intensely focused gaze from a slender, muscular shepherd with distinctive amber eyes. Unlike many rescued dogs, the dog did not bark or pace. He remained perfectly still, evaluating Benjamin with a nearly human intelligence. "What is his history?" Benjamin asked, maintaining eye contact with the extraordinary animal. Martinez referred to his clipboard. "We're not entirely sure," he stated. "The operation involved smuggling both drugs and people. This dog was discovered guarding a container holding children inside. He did not attack the rescue team, did not attempt to flee, but instead protected the kids. The strangest thing I've ever seen," Martinez commented. "He's failed traditional explosive detection programming," Martinez clarified. "Not because he lacks the ability to detect. His scent detection abilities are exceptional, yet he repeatedly signals to things we haven't intentionally introduced. We initially dismissed these as false positives." Benjamin inquired when Martinez paused. "3 times now, he's alerted on items or locations where we discovered nothing. Each instance, we submitted the indicated items for comprehensive analysis. On each occasion, Further investigation revealed something previously undetected. Chemical precursors, residues, compounds our routine tests failed to identify. It was as if he perceived the world on a different sensory plane than our other dogs. Benjamin returned to the current reality as Patel's voice cut through his memories. The initial scan revealed standard items, clothing, toiletries, and what appeared to be documentation. No explosive compounds were found, nor any unusual wiring or devices. Cassidy directed a significant look toward Benjamin. There you have it. With due respect, sir, Patel added, there's a peculiarity concerning the interior lining. Observe this density variation. The bag appeared to have a subtly altered compartment. It was barely noticeable, but clearly not a result of standard manufacturing. Benjamin felt a sudden feeling of unease as he noticed Lexus looking at him, seemingly confirming his suspicions. Lieutenant, he said softly, I believe we must treat this with utmost seriousness. Lexus has identified something that our usual protocols aren't addressing. Cassidy finally gave the order, call the bomb squad. Implement full evacuation protocol, establishing a 100-foot perimeter. Linus, I expect your dog to be correct about this. The bomb squad technicians advanced with methodical precision, their bulky protective suits making them appear almost robotic as they neared the abandoned bag. Benjamin and Lexus had been moved back to the perimeter line, where they maintained visual contact with the operation. Remote assessment first, announced Garcia, the bomb tech lead, as his team deployed a small rover equipped with additional sensing equipment. Cassidy stood beside Benjamin, his posture betraying the palpable tension. O'Hare deals with more than 2,500 lost items annually, he said. 99% are simply forgotten laptops and water bottles. He shook his head. We're closing down half a terminal because of a dog's unusual actions. The rover approached the bag, and Garcia directed its unique sensors from a distance. Following several anxious minutes, his voice came over the radio. No explosive compounds found, no radiation, no known biological agents detected. Shifting to a physical examination, Garcia proceeded, personally inspecting the bag with a specialized camera. Another individual arrived at the edge of the area, a woman wearing a fitted charcoal suit, her Homeland Security identification clearly visible. Agent Diana Walsh introduced herself briefly, asking about the circumstances. Likely a false alarm, Cassidy replied, before Benjamin could respond. Typical abandoned bag. No explosives have been found. We anticipate resuming operations soon. Walsh's keen gaze shifted from the surroundings to Lexus, who was now looking straight at her, his stance still tense and focused. That your dog, officer? Linus. Benjamin Linus. And yes, this is Lexus, she stated, rather than asked, which surprised Benjamin. I read the file. His alert behavior is unusual? Very, Benjamin confirmed. I've never seen him react this way before. Walsh examined Lexus with heightened interest. What exactly is different about his behavior? He is maintaining distance while remaining focused. Normally, he approaches detection targets directly. And these vocalizations? As if on cue, Lexus let out another series of short, sharp barks. They're not part of his training. Over the radio, Garcia's voice interrupted their conversation. Physical inspection reveals no traditional threat devices. However, there's definitely a concealed compartment in the lining. Very sophisticated work, not visible to the naked eye. Walsh's face grew serious. Don't open that compartment, she instructed firmly into her own radio. Excuse me? Cassidy questioned. This is airport jurisdiction. Not anymore, Walsh replied, showing her credentials more clearly. That bag corresponds to a profile we're monitoring. Officer Linus, how is your dog reacting? Is he retreating while still attentive? Benjamin responded, seemingly taken aback. That's precisely what's happening. Instead of explaining, Walsh quickly spoke into her radio. Agent Walsh is requesting immediate hazmat support at O'Hare Terminal 5, East Wing. A potential CBR material is suspected. Priority code Alpha. Our sensors detect known threats, Walsh replied grimly to Cassidy's protest. We've been tracking a new synthetic compound that evades standard detection. There have been 3 incidents in the past month. Dallas, Miami, and Phoenix. The only consistent detection has been unusual behavior from certain K-9 units. Specifically, alert without approach. Benjamin experienced a chilling realization. He was sensing something hazardous, though unfamiliar from his training. Therefore, he maintained a safe distance while staying vigilant. Indeed, Walsh affirmed, and should it prove to be what we suspect, your dog may have potentially saved hundreds of lives. The operations manager's face reddened significantly when Walsh requested a complete evacuation of the terminal. Do you comprehend the implications of this request? This situation involves potentially disrupting travel for thousands of people and causing millions in lost revenue. I understand perfectly, Walsh stated, her voice steady but with an unmistakable firmness. And I'm not requesting it. Following a moment of heightened tension, Cassidy's radio crackled with a transmission from the airport director himself. After a short discussion, he addressed the group, his face serious. The director has approved the full evacuation protocol for Terminal 5. We are initiating it now. With the evacuation announcement echoing through the terminal, Benjamin experienced a brief sense of relief, which was swiftly overtaken by a fresh worry. If this is what you suspect, Agent Walsh, he thought, already observing the escalating disarray of the evacuation, then whoever placed this bag here is probably still in the airport. And now we're setting everyone in motion, making them more difficult to track. Benjamin stated, his mind racing through the possibilities. We need to find them before they realize we've discovered the bag. Lexus can help. If he detected whatever's in that bag, he might be able to track the person who handled it. Agent Harlow from the CBR response unit arrived and quickly coordinated with the hazmat team. Benjamin knelt beside Lexus, speaking in a low, steady tone. We need to find who left this boy. Can you do that? Can you find them? Lexus's intelligent eyes focused on Benjamin's face, a gentle whine escaping his throat, demonstrating understanding yet conveying worry. I know it's dangerous, Benjamin said quietly. We'll be cautious, but we need to find them. The hazmat team arrived, fully equipped in protective gear, their presence forming a strange, isolated zone of intense action within the now unsettlingly vacant terminal. Benjamin and Lexus stayed at the designated perimeter, observing as the specialists cautiously neared the bag. Remote extraction first, the hazmat lead stated, deploying a specialized robot intended to manage potentially hazardous materials. While maintaining a negative pressure environment during the transfer, Harlow approached, holding a tablet displaying security footage. We've got partial facial recognition from cameras near where the bag was placed. The individual is a male, approximately 30 to 35 years old. He is Caucasian and traveling alone. He entered through the north entrance at 6:14 a.m. He was carrying a bag. That was nearly 2 hours ago, Benjamin noted with concern, suggesting he could be long gone. Harlow countered, swiping to another image, stating he was last seen entering a restroom near Gate E9 20 minutes ago and has not emerged yet. Meanwhile, the hazmat team successfully accessed the concealed compartment within a specialized containment unit. The hazmat lead's voice crackled over the radio. Professional detachment briefly faltered. This isn't just a chemical agent, he stated. There's sophisticated delivery equipment in here. A timer, atomizer, distribution system, and documentation. A lot of it. The hazmat lead continued, his voice returning to its professional calm. The dispersal mechanism was set for noon, 4 hours from now, when the terminal would be at peak capacity. Travel documents, multiple identities, and maps. Terminal layouts for O'Hare, Atlanta Hartsfield, LAX. This indicated a broader operation. A hazmat technician meticulously removed what seemed to be a small notebook, securing it in a transparent evidence bag, and subjecting it to a decontamination procedure before it was given to Harlow. It's a manifesto, Harlow stated grimly as he examined the pages. Concerning rhetoric, including expressions of extreme opposition to immigration and allusions to restricting international travel, has emerged. This indicated a planned terrorist attack with the intent to target foreign nationals at several airports. The hazmat team has identified the chemical compound involved. It is a synthesized neurological agent, non-lethal upon contact, but intended to induce panic, disorientation, and respiratory distress within a densely populated airport environment, potentially leading to widespread panic and chaotic trampling. Benjamin completed his thought. Standard sensors wouldn't identify it, as it's designed to stay inactive until scattered. Harlow gave Benjamin a hotel key, which was located in an outer pocket of the bag and is now secured in an evidence bag. It should be safe for your dog to analyze the scent from the bag without physical contact. Lexus. Scent. Benjamin instructed, holding the sealed bag close to the shepherd's nose without opening it. Lexus inhaled deeply, then looked at Benjamin, attentive and prepared. Locate him. Benjamin gave the signal, and they proceeded into the terminal's interior, where their suspect might still be concealed. Lexus advanced with focused determination through the evacuated terminal, his nose working constantly as he followed the scent from the hotel key card. Benjamin kept a steady tension on the lead, allowing his partner sufficient freedom to work while remaining connected to his movements. Agent Walsh and 2 airport security officers trailed behind, maintaining a distance to avoid disrupting the scent tracking. The deserted terminal, usually filled with activity, provided a disturbing scene for their pursuit. Coffee cups remained warm on the tables. Breakfast sandwiches were left unfinished. Newspapers drifted in the air conditioning, which continued to operate despite the evacuation. As they headed toward Concourse E, Benjamin spoke softly into his radio, while Lexus guided them past closed duty-free shops and empty waiting areas. Lexus abruptly stopped at a junction of corridors, his sense of smell working intensely as he appeared to evaluate different scent paths. Following a brief pause, he turned purposefully toward a service corridor labeled Authorized Personnel Only. He is entering the restricted area, Benjamin confirmed into his radio. Request backup at Service Corridor E42. The door to the service area was slightly ajar, a further cause for concern, as these doors were mandated to remain secured at all times. Lexus's pace increased, his body language indicating a closer approach to their target. The narrow corridor opened into a more spacious back-of-house area where airport operations handled luggage, supplies, and equipment. Lexus paused once more, moving around a section close to a staff break room before returning towards a door labeled Electrical Access. His actions changed slightly, his ears perked, his posture suggesting he's found their target. Through the little, wire-reinforced window, Benjamin could see activity inside, someone quickly collecting things from a backpack. Subject identified, Benjamin spoke into his radio. Male matches description, seems to be getting ready for something. Request immediate tactical response. Lexus emitted a warning bark. The suspect had observed their presence through the window. Immediately, the man inside began moving, displaying frantic energy, retrieving something from his pack. No time, Benjamin responded urgently. Subject is actively handling unknown materials. We're moving in now. With practiced coordination, Benjamin and the security team positioned themselves at the door while Walsh covered their flank. With Benjamin's approval, an officer opened the door, and they entered quickly. Airport police, Homeland Security, hands where we can see them, Walsh ordered, raising her weapon. The suspect, a thin man with close-cropped hair and pale eyes, paused briefly, his hands near what looked like another modified bag resembling the one they had discovered. He then moved swiftly, lunging for a small canister on the workbench. Another device. Benjamin cautioned, issuing a command at the same time. Lexus, stop. The Dutch shepherd surged ahead with intense focus, expertly trained to neutralize dangers without causing serious harm. He intercepted the suspect's arm just as he attempted to reach the canister, using a controlled pressure with his jaw that made the man cry out and fall backward. Don't move, Walsh instructed as Benjamin secured Lexus, and the security officers moved in to restrain the suspect. A brief examination of the room exposed the troubling extent of the operation, including another partially assembled dispersal device, additional documentation, and what seemed to be communication equipment. The suspect remained handcuffed to a chair in the airport security office, his gaunt face set in a look of scornful silence as Agent Harlow and a recently arrived FBI agent prepared for questioning. His name is Ethan Mercer, Walsh told Benjamin, reading from a preliminary report on her tablet. A former chemical engineering student, who left school 3 years ago, had been flagged for extremist online activity on several watch lists. However, no action was deemed necessary until now. Through the speaker, they could hear Harlow starting the interrogation, using a methodical and controlled approach. Mercer remained silent, offering only occasional smirks and shrugs in response. The interrogation stretched on for several minutes without significant advancement until the FBI agent presented photographs of the disassembled device on the table. A subtle expression crossed Mercer's face, not fear, but something resembling pride. "You were fortunate," Mercer finally said, his voice unexpectedly gentle and clear. "If not for that dog." Benjamin noticed Lexus stiffen next to him at the mention, as if the shepherd recognized he was the subject of discussion. "How many more?" Harlow asked, leaning forward. Mercer's smile broadened a little. "Sufficient. Today marked the commencement. The purification process has begun, and the impending events are unstoppable." A disturbance in the hallway captured their focus when the hazmat team leader arrived with pressing information. "We have finished the analysis of the communication devices located with the suspect," he stated. "They are burner phones, each containing only 3 numbers in the call history. Each of those 3 numbers traces back to prepaid phones bought in separate cities. Walsh suspected Dallas, Atlanta, and Los Angeles. His assessment proved accurate, the hazmat lead verified. Further details emerged. The devices incorporated synchronized timers, intended for simultaneous activation across all locations. Your phones betrayed you, Ethan, Harlow stated, her voice steady through the interrogation room speaker. We are currently monitoring your associates. He glanced at his watch with a studied nonchalance. They are likely already in custody. Now, the crucial question remains, who will break their silence first? The possibility of avoiding a lifetime in solitary confinement hinged on cooperation. For the first time, uncertainty appeared on Mercer's face. His meticulously built resistance started to falter. Your dog ruined everything, Mercer abruptly said, glaring at the one-way glass as if he could see Benjamin through it. Those devices were undetectable. We tested them for months. How did that animal know? As the sun set over the O'Hare runways, Terminal 5 was declared clear of all threats. Limited operations had resumed in other areas of the airport. Thousands of passengers remained displaced, their travel plans disrupted by the day's events. Benjamin stood by a wall of windows overlooking the tarmac, watching planes slowly returning to their gates as Lexus rested at his feet, finally relaxed after the intense day. Officer Linus, Agent Walsh approached, appearing weary but satisfied, and thought you'd want an update before you left. Mercer provided his contacts after approximately 3 more hours of interrogation, she reported. Tactical teams apprehended 2 accomplices in Atlanta and 1 in Los Angeles, all possessing similar devices in early preparation stages. Dallas proved to be a false lead, a deliberate misdirection, potentially in response to compromised communications. We stopped it, Benjamin confirmed, his voice conveying obvious relief. Completely? Walsh affirmed, looking down at Lexus with a gesture of respect. The timing was absolutely critical. Had that first device deployed successfully, it would have provided data enabling improvements to the others. Each subsequent attack would have been more effective. Do you have any understanding yet of how he managed to detect the compound when none of our equipment could? Walsh smiled faintly. Our lab has a theory. The compound's chemical profile shifts slightly upon exposure to the surrounding atmosphere. This characteristic contributed to the difficulty in its detection. Standard instruments are often adjusted to recognize defined, consistent profiles. Lexus, however, operates differently. Canines don't use calibration. They interpret scent data through unique methods, identifying patterns and alterations beyond the capacity of current technology. Dr. Aris knelt down to Lexus's level, receiving a questioning head movement from the shepherd. This particular dog appears exceptionally skilled. It's likely his early experiences contributed to his advanced detection abilities. Lieutenant Cassidy arrived, his initial doubts giving way to clear respect. The director has scheduled a meeting for both of you tomorrow morning. A commendation is planned. The FBI is now assuming control of the investigation, Walsh stated. However, Homeland Security remains keen on evaluating your K9's detection capabilities. With your permission, we'd like to develop a training program utilizing Lexus's responses to assist other dogs in recognizing these types of threats. As Walsh and Cassidy departed, Benjamin knelt beside Lexus, carefully taking the dog's face in his hands. The intelligent amber eyes that had first connected with him years ago at the training facility looked back with the same unwavering trust. "You did well today, partner. Really well." He stroked his hands along Lexus's sides. A final check was performed to ensure there were no signs of distress or exposure. Finding none, the lead was reattached to the tactical collar. "Let's go home." As they walked through the terminal, which was gradually reopening, Benjamin thought about how many near misses in his career had depended on split-second decisions and instinctive reactions. But today had been different. Today focused on the deep trust developed between Handler and K9 through years of collaboration, a connection that went beyond training manuals and standard procedures. What Lexus accomplished couldn't be duplicated by technology or documented in reports. It represented the peak of natural aptitude, specialized training, and something more intangible, a nearly instinctive ability that some remarkable working dogs appeared to have. Benjamin had consistently trusted his partner's skills, but today had solidified that trust into something absolute. No matter what difficulties they encountered moving forward, they would confront them as a team, their partnership strengthened by the experiences of today. The following morning would involve reviews, paperwork, and probably numerous inquiries regarding Lexus's distinctive detection abilities. For tonight, Benjamin felt satisfied, knowing that many travelers would return home safely to their families, completely unaware of how narrowly they had avoided disaster, and how a Dutch shepherd with amber eyes had stood between them in the midst of chaos. Have you ever experienced a moment when an animal perceived something that humans completely missed? Animals often possess remarkable abilities that science is still trying to understand. This story highlights how vital these instincts can be in critical situations. We are interested in hearing about your experiences with animals that appear to possess more understanding than the humans nearby. Considering you were in Officer Linus's position, would you have believed your canine partner's atypical behavior, despite technology and protocols indicating no danger? It requires significant courage to support a partner's instincts when others advise caution. Can you recall a time when you made a tough choice relying on your gut feeling instead of data? Working dogs, such as Lexus, contribute to saving many lives daily across the globe due to their remarkable skills and commitment. Do you have personal encounters with service animals or working dogs that impressed you with their intelligence and abilities? Please share your stories in the comments below. Inspired by Lexus's incredible story today? Don't miss our next video. Subscribe and enable notifications. We release another unforgettable story of heroism and dedication from the world's most extraordinary canine officers every day at the same time. Give a like if you think these four-legged heroes deserve more recognition for their life-saving work. We think you'll enjoy this video if you love dogs or are interested in canine units. Please see our previous stories, which are appearing on the screen now. And remember, behind every great police dog is a partnership built on unwavering trust and communication. We'll see you again tomorrow at the same time with another amazing canine story.